This is our third video here at Tingenuity AI, and we have a very special guest, a graphic designer skilled with Midjourney, who's going to speak with me today. My brother. Welcome.
Thanks for the intro. I appreciate that. That's fantastic.
It's the first time we've had an intro for either of us on the channel, so.
Right. I guess next time when we do some law prompts, we'll talk about it. I'll introduce you as the guest.
Oh, please
speaker.
do.
That'll be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, today we're going to talk a little bit about the generative AI platforms that are out there. Specifically, Midjourney is the one that I know the best, the one that I enjoy, and for all intents and purposes, the one that I've used for actual paid work. And just, it's really interesting what these AI platforms are coming up with, especially in the sphere of creativity, where I thrive and enjoy the most. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, how to create prompts, then prepare some prompts to allow some experimentation for you on our website, and how you can improve your functioning use of these AI tools into the future. So without further ado, let's jump into some of this. Are there any questions that you have, Jacob, before we really dive in, or any thoughts that you have? Because I know you've experimented with Midjourney previously as well. So
right.
What are your thoughts about it?
Well, so one of the things that I like about this collaboration that we're doing is I feel like I'm pretty good with Midjourney, but I feel like I'm really good with ChatGPT. I feel like you're good with Midjourney and ChatGPT. Like, I think we have strengths in either discipline. And yep. So I feel like we come together and we really get the tools. And so I'm excited to see, because I haven't used Midjourney outside of a couple of social post images kind of thing. I haven't used Midjourney in my career because my career doesn't require making images, right? Whereas yours does. And so you have found more outlets. Like, I've only used Midjourney creatively. I have not used Midjourney. I haven't made any money off of Midjourney yet. I've made money from the ChatGPT prompts, the Dungeons and Dragons prompts. And so I'm excited to kind of see, well, and frankly, do both, moving forward. And so I get excited when you tell me about all the different things you're doing with like, for example, real estate, architecture kind of photography that you're generating kind of on the fly with Midjourney. I think it's fascinating. And so I think that's a great place to start, to be honest.
Well, and we'll talk a little bit about that then. So some of the uses that I've had for Midjourney include the use in my social posts. So I create a lot of art. Also, I've recently been doing a presentation about AI to a variety of real estate professionals, and all the imagery that I created for that presentation was used Midjourney to create those prompts, to provide those background images to really enhance that presentation. As well as I've helped with some concepts, and that's what I love about this technology. It allows for really quick, fast, and efficient prompt concept for jobs. So things like a hotel, that someone asked me to imagine a hotel on this piece of land, and so we developed some prompts circulated about that. A rezoning project.
Can I share some of these on your Midjourney account while you're talking? Can I just kind of poke around? Do you mind?
Sure, feel free.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
You're not going to find...
I got it. You keep talking. You focus on that.
Okay. So some of the prompts that we did. Okay, so you're looking at some of those there, and those I've showcased in my presentation. So these are live demo images where I've crafted a prompt to show these real estate professionals what these technology platforms are capable. And typically I've shown prompts for ChatGPT and Midjourney, and it's been an interesting introspective for each of those individuals and the professional types that they are, from architects to tenant brokers to landlord brokers, developers, and construction workers. They all have their interest in some of these aspects because they allow for these quick concepting phases. And some interesting questions have come up for some of these things, like one, a developer asked, "Are these structurally sound?" and I just have to say, well, that's really up to the engineers. I've seen some really wonky buildings in real life that I'm like, how is that
That's
still
true.
standing?
Yeah.
So, the engineers are the ones that take the concepts that the architects or the creatives come up with, and then find a way to make it structurally sound. So the one that you're showing right now,
This one.
or some of those, this one, it's pretty blocky. That's probably an easy thing for an engineer.
That's probably doable. Yeah.
But others, if you scroll through the feed, you'll see some others where they get a little more entertaining and interesting. And part of those prompts, it relies on the style of architect and the specificity. As we've said many times before, it's the specificity that you give these prompts that allows it to create results that you want. For example, the organic nature of this one, I think the architect is Frank Gehry. So if you infuse or say that style, you're going to get a different kind of look and feel for that particular building. So if you infuse a different architect, and we'll walk through some of these prompts and talk a little bit about how to create them and what's useful in those prompts. So as you've done, I've done a lot of things for creative personal use as well as the professional sphere. Again, concepting for a hotel. I recently did a zoo project where kiosks for a client to come in and do concessions. They wanted some kind of kiosk, and we made some kiosks.
Are the hotel images in this thread here in the real estate thread?
Yeah, much further up. But if you go to the zoo project, let's talk. Oh,
Okay, let's talk the zoo. That one was cool because you got it so close. You got to share like the photos too because of how close this is to what it actually looks like. It's amazing.
Yeah, and here, if you want to share my screen, that way I can kind of walk through that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'll switch to your screen share. There you go.
So I'll highlight some of these things. So let's see. Okay, so here's a kiosk that they had, and then that's the actual kiosk they had, right? The one up above. This is the.
That's a picture, not a Midjourney creation.
Correct.
Okay.
Midjourney's still pretty bad about fonts and whatnot, but interestingly enough, you can in Midjourney, and we're going to dive into some of the basics. Let's showcase some of this here. You can insert an image and then have that prompt added to your prompt, and so it has a nice base. And where I've created this prompt, and so it kept some of the things, and it, in some aspects it was great, in others not so good. It created the lion. I guess it grabbed that lion's lair up there, and so created that, and then created a lion. But it kept kind of the color and the basic structure or form and shape of this as we were trying to create this thing. And let's go through some of this prompt here. So I've added the image, and then the prompt itself is this bit here. And what I wanted it to do is, okay, this is a beverage kiosk stand at a zoo featuring beer sodas. I want to keep these colors, want the natural lighting. So you give it kind of the general dimensions that you're looking for your camera settings, the kind of lighting. I want a sunny late afternoon. I want it to be architectural photography, so it adds that kind of element. And then at the end, I've used some of these photo prompts.
Yeah, and I want to ask questions about some of these things. So obviously aspect ratio at the end. So for those who aren't using Midjourney, who haven't used Midjourney, why don't you break down also the flags at the end, the dashes and all of that stuff?
Well, I'm going to jump to this, and we'll walk through a prompt. So when you're using
No.
Midjourney,
Go back. I have questions.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, like.
Okay, let's go through your questions here, and then maybe that will help push the discussion.
Yeah. All right. So my question for you is, what is this prompt doing, and what do you think is actually mattering? Because I'll see Midjourney prompts, and I'll see just a bunch of gobbledygook, and I don't know what's doing what. So tell me what this is doing and how you know that it's doing it.
Okay, so the first the first thing is that we've inserted this image, right? And so we capture the URL for that image, and this is the URL. So this is the base for that prompt. And when you create it, we're going to go to this just single image so you can see it better. So this is the base for the prompt. And so it's going to really give a lot of weight to that starting point of the prompt. And in this case, this is this kiosk. So it maintained some of the coloring, the shape, and other aspects and components of it. What I'm telling it to do is, okay, I want you to make it a beverage kiosk stand at a zoo featuring beer and sodas. The beer and sodas, it really doesn't matter. That's me telling Midjourney a story. And the better your story is, the better Midjourney is going to adhere to it based on some other factors. So I've also told it I want it to maintain that yellow and green from that initial theme. I want this natural lighting rather than, say, studio lighting or cinematic lighting, whatever that lighting fixture is. And then I want a sunny late afternoon, because that's when you go to the zoo, right?
Instead of cloudy and overcast, right? Yeah, you want a sunny late afternoon.
You could say cloudy and overcast. Architectural photography, that really prompts it to say, okay, well, you want this to be more in that vein of architectural style of photography, more editorial, more, what is the word? Concept rendery. Not exactly rendery, because this is more photographic because of later things. And this right here is a specification. So these things have been trained with a variety of cameras and lenses and lens types. And so it understands this nomenclature to really enhance the prompt. I'm also giving it this, I want it to be photorealistic and 4K. And then we add parameters, and these things at the end are parameters. So this first one, this -- AR 16:9, is the aspect ratio. So AR aspect ratio. Then this is a stylized feature. Their default for Midjourney is 100. So I told it I want it to adhere more to my prompt than being artistic. And this will range from 0 to 1,000. So if you put it at 1,000, it's going to be really artistic. And it gives it a lot of freedom with what you want it to do. So in this particular thing,
you don't want to give it freedom. You want it to generate something very specific.
Right. I want it to be as close to what the base image was giving, and then some of the other aspects of my prompt. And then this final thing here is the version. And this just gets added regardless, because I have it set at version 5.2, which is the
right, because you can
version.
set your settings in Midjourney.
And now, you can tell it to use a earlier version to make it do different and artistic things.
Now, you and I have talked about this a little, which is your experience has been that people who are good with words tend to be good with Midjourney because you're creating images with words. But do you think there's also an element of where, like, people who are good at photography can be good at Midjourney because they know, like, the Canon EOS back down to ISO 100 is gobbledygook for a lot of people. You and I know some of those terms because I know that you've been involved with graphic design and other things. And then when you set up a studio like this and you get a camera and you figure out all of those things, you know what they mean. But if you don't know what they mean, how do you know what to pop in there so that Midjourney knows to, like, dive into its database and pull out, oh, I need to use the Canon EFS lens instead of the, you know what I mean? So, like, do you think that there's probably some borrowed skill sets there?
I think there are. You're using a lot of disciplines when you're generating art. And it all depends on the type of art you're creating. So in this particular example, I'm using the stuff that I've learned over a 20-year career in design and creativity. I've worked with architectural photographers. I've worked with portrait photographers. I've worked with a lot of photographers. So yes, I do know these things, but I do still have to research some of them. So if I don't know what that particular camera does, I'll go research that a little bit. Also, you don't have to be this specific. if you're not really looking for that specificity. You could just say DSLR camera, and it will know, okay, it will take from that gamut of cameras and select one and then give you kind of a good version of it. So it all really basically comes down to the specificity you want. As we've talked about with other things, the more specific you can be, the better the result, right?
Right. ChatGPT works like that. Like it's like a very good assistant, but unless you give it specific instruction, it's not going to give you a specific answer. I really liked that S flag. I didn't know that you could do that to make it less artistic, give it less freedom in terms of the image that it generates. So that's a really good pro tip. I think you were going to show us
stylize versus style. There are two different parameters. There's style and stylize.
Save it for the course, Warren.
Right. But there's different things, and so like with this, if you're doing something more concepty, you don't need all these specificity things. And it's the same with, if you're giving direction to a photographer, if you're vague about the directions, you're going to get something generic and get something, less artistic or whatever. If you're very specific, you're going to get the result that you want. The more specific you are, the better that result, right?
Right. And I think, like, for me as a business owner, I used to have this misconception that if I wasn't specific with if I was specific with my employees, maybe I was micromanaging in some way. And over recently, I've learned, and I think ChatGPT actually helps, is that by giving enough specificity, employees tend to appreciate that kind of level of specificity. I'm going to trip over that word a bunch of times today. That level of specificity, and so they need specific instructions. But ChatGPT is similar in that, and also Midjourney, in that the more specific the instruction. I think we were going to turn now to like maybe actually building out a prompt. Do you want to try that?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love with the specificity aspect of it. When there's nothing, and creatives will all cringe with this, there's nothing better than to hear your client say, "I'll know it when I see it," and you're like, no, that's not helpful. You need to tell me what you have in your mind, so that I can at least get close to that target. Because if I'm throwing darts at that dartboard and
I'll know it when I see it.
You've spun me around, put a blindfold on, you spun me around, and then taken the blindfold off, and I'm throwing darts at the bartender. It's not a good thing. The dartboard's behind me, so you've got to point me in the right direction. Otherwise, it's not gonna help.
I appreciate that.
All right, so here we'll start off with the basic kind of prompt, and in Midjourney, there are a variety of prompts, and you can do a number of things with those. We're going to talk primarily about image prompt here.
Yeah.
So,
which is the primary way that you make that you make an image.
So imagine, you have to tell it, and well, let me back up a little bit too, because Midjourney, you can get your account and then you can attach it to Discord here. You can do some prompting online, but they kind of funnel you to Discord, where you can create your own channel. You could go into their channel, which is this one right here,
and test it out.
Visit it and test things out, and also see other people's work. There's a number of showcase things there, which is a lot of fun because it gives you inspiration for what you can create. So with this, we're doing a prompt, and so let's start out with, we're going to do, since we did D&D the other day, we'll do Magic the Gathering cards here. So we're
Magic,
create a token. So we're going to create
Magic.
An angel, and if we just say one word and then just hit enter, it's going to go, okay, we'll just create an angel. And
it's just going to be whatever. Right. So
it's going to create something. We've given it 0 parameters besides the angel. So it's waiting to start. We'll see here in a second. It'll generate noise for what that angel will look like. And this is, again, version 5.2, which is what it defaulted to.
Now, Midjourney functions in a similar fashion as ChatGPT, which is ChatGPT, all it's really doing is like predicting the likelihood of the next word and giving you options, right? And so Midjourney does the same thing with the pixels. It's all like, okay, well, here's my base, and now I'm going to predict how this might be, right? It works in a similar way, but with images, which is a little more difficult to conceptualize than just with words.
Okay. Yeah. So here we've got this. This is an interesting prompt. So what it generated a female angel, not a male angel. So that's interesting fact number one. A lot of angels, and this one in the top left corner looks like perhaps a Victoria's Secret angel with some kind of metallic fashion. Then we have the kind of innocent angel here in the top right, a really high fantasy angel with the backlighting of stained glass window, and then kind of a gothic angel in the bottom right. So it obviously created the angel.
But it created four different styles in completely different directions.
In different directions. And that's one of the things that's really nice about Midjourney versus ChatGPT. ChatGPT is going to give you, text. And it doesn't give you a variety of text.
Right.
It just creates that, which is good and bad in a certain way. In this particular format, this gives you some variety, and you can then use these buttons below to either upscale or go with a variety or re-roll your prompt. Because these are very generic, it just went with angel. We didn't really give it any specificity with the prompt. Let's try with another. So we're going to imagine again, and this time we're going to say, let's see, an angel, and this is again telling a story. Angel descending from the heavens, wielding a flaming sword.
All right, let's see what it does with that. So that's giving it some context, right? And then, but still, we haven't gotten to
wielding wrong.
But we haven't even gotten to things like style, background, and other things that you can add to the prompt. But this is a lot more definition than the first one, which is just angel. Like, I thought it might even pop out with like a cartoon angel or maybe a cupid. So we'll see what this does. You gonna add anything else to it, or is that it?
Wielding. Okay.
You're just making sure you're spelling wielding right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So as this generates, there's the noise that it starts with, and these things are really just kind of random. But then you start seeing that detail, and it's really interesting to watch this and how fast it is.
Well, and the color tone that it chose, right, for the first noise was kind of a flame colored, right? Like, because that's the only kind of color hint that it got. And so we're already seeing red. So if you wanted it to be blue or green, you'd have to throw in that word in there for it to get it.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
So now we've got some really interesting features. We've got flames coming from the below. So when my prompt was flame sword. So flaming, I should say flaming sword maybe.
The top left has a flame sword. Bottom left has a flame sword. But it grabbed hold of the fire definition and tried to incorporate elements of that to the whole image.
Yeah. And so with this, we've added some features to it. So it's a more dynamic image now. There's more action to them.
And it's descending from heaven, so it decided to put a background of clouds, right, instead of Whereas the first set, the background was just kind of whatever.
Yeah. So let's expand on this, and we'll just say, imagine an angel descending from the heavens, wielding a flaming sword this time.
And then what other kind of definition do you want to add?
We're going to say above a battle. a raging battle. And then we're going to add some specific things. So we're going to say, we're going to give it an art style. So you can give things like a specific artist. You can give it an artist name and say that. You can say something like fantasy art style.
So, quick question. Why a comma instead of something else? I know in the past you mentioned that you can use a plus, and so I've used that as well, which kind of, from what you were saying, kind of weights them evenly.
The plus adds a little bit more weight, but the commas really are for humans to help break
so
things
Midjourney
up.
doesn't read the commas at all.
Not really. It
Okay.
has that break, but for us, it's to help us, kind of see where we are with this.
Well, but I think it's important to know the difference, like between what Midjourney uses versus what a human, needs.
Yeah, right. And as I was telling you earlier before we jumped on this, like you could say there are certain reasons where you are using a comma. So if we did the bracket thing where I said you could do a multi-prompt, so you could say a demon, and then we put the bracket. So we've got two different things descending from the heavens, wielding a flaming sword. So we'll see that too. And you can do that bracket, which is going to be entertaining.
And that's a Midjourney instruction, that bracket thing. That's
that bracket
specific to the programming. Okay, all right, keep
kind
going.
of like the hashtag to make that markdown table.
Right,
And
yeah,
or
in ChatGPT.
to give the markdown on or hierarchy. And then we'll say, let's do cinematic, lighting, epic. Just throw epic in there to make it really kind of interesting. And then we'll just give it some parameters this time. So we're going to say AR 16 by 9 to give
Which
it
is more
wider,
like a widescreen TV kind of view of whatever's going on.
We're going to give it a lot of freedom this time. So we're going to say 500 on the stylize feature here.
Okay.
And then we'll give it a quality instruction. We'll say we want it to be quality 1. And then we'll hit it and see what it does. And at first it's going to show you this, yes or no. Do you want it to do these two prompts? And yes, we do.
Yes.
So we wouldn't have told it otherwise. I'm not sure
So
why
what's the
it
quality instruction? What's the, tell me about that one.
The quality, again, it goes back into that artistic feature where it's going to be more concept versus the higher quality is going to be more detailed and resolute. So this is going to be interesting. It's got like a person here and an angel coming down.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Like, I'm looking at the prompt thinking, a demon descending from heaven versus an angel. I wondered what it was going to do with that.
Right. Oh, those are fantastic. Look at those. Okay, so here's the demon part here. So that's interesting.
Oh man, that's amazing.
So here's the demon, and this guy's got a flaming sword, and yeah. So those are interesting. It's definitely very stylized.
Yeah, definitely very stylized.
The angel.
So the one on the bottom left is an angel.
Well, see, this says angel here.
Yeah.
And this is demon here. So it created those two prompts. And you can see it. We didn't really give it an artist, so if we wanted a specific art style, and this is where it gets into some of the concerns about theft of IP, because
because for it
you're stealing my style.
Right, to do something in the style of somebody, it has to have looked at images from that artist.
Right.
In order to do that effectively.
I have some strong opinions on this kind of thing, because when I'm going to go design something, I go to the internet and I look for inspiration online, and I'll look at artist pieces, or I'll look at other designers' pieces, and I'll take those things and then infuse them into what I'm creating, because what is the current trends today? What is the current design style. And so we all kind of steal from each other. But in this particular aspect, where my human mind is a little fallible and can't keep all of the details, the data storage, the computer minds here can store all of that information, and thus it's yeah, I don't know where that's going to land. What do you think about that? As an attorney, what are you thinking about that particular aspect?
Well, I mean, I think that there's obviously a difference between, so if we're going to talk law, there's a difference between looking at it with your eyeballs versus for a computer to look at it, it doesn't have eyeballs. It's going to make a copy of that image, and by the time you've made a copy, then somebody has a copyright to that copy. I mean, right? So for a computer, yeah, I mean, it obviously copyright becomes involved, and so this is one of those issues where I think courts will figure something out. It's going to be really hard for any individual author or any individual artist to say, "Hey, you copied my stuff," because frankly, there are just a lot of ways to describe a style too. You don't necessarily need to give an artist's name. You could say Rococo style, or Renaissance style, and right. Those would still get you somewhere in the ballpark. And so, but then again, those are older styles. They exist in the public domain, and so. But even something modern like chibi style, or even like the Niji filter, which I think is essentially like anime style.
It is.
Those are modern styles. And so it's really interesting. I think that definitely creators can and should have copyrights, and they should assert them, right? And yeah. It's anybody's guess as to how that's going to land. I do know that when it comes to tech companies and precedent about some things, sometimes it seems like there's a public good analysis that happens. There are some Google cases, for example, where Google will take a bunch of images. Like if you search for an image and you go online and then you click on Google's image tab, it's going to have a bunch of images that don't belong to Google. And the reason Google can still do that is because there was a lawsuit, and the court said, well, hey, like this doesn't take away from the value of the full image. But also there's like a public good being done. And so they weighed in balance of Google. But some people look at that and criticize the decisions like those and say, well, Google has tons of money and those kinds of things too. So it's widely up for debate. I think the other side of the issue where I actually have like a strong opinion and say it should be this way is that you should own the copyright in the images you just made, period. And currently there's been a copyright decision that says you don't. Unless, right? And then it's still kind of foggy or vague. And so for me, I think that that's the wrong decision. And I think, but even then, like there's like one decision that's out there, and it's things are still in flux. And I talk with my lawyer friends about it. So when it comes to copyright and artificial intelligence, there's still a lot that we don't know because it hasn't been decided. So we're still figuring that out.
Well, I lean on the side that you're talking on, because I was the one that created this particular prompt, and if someone uses this prompt, they're going to get a different result. So that art is going to be unique and different. I haven't seen, it's not going to, even if I copy this, let's just copy it and see what it comes up with.
Yeah, it will be different. It will be different. Let's go back and take a look.
It's going to be different. So I've put that in, and then I want to talk art styles too. So I'm going to throw in Picasso as the art style instead of
do the same prompt with Picasso, please.
Yeah, and so we're going to see what that does, and so we'll paste that in as this one's completing, and so we're going to say Picasso style, and we'll get rid of the cinematic because it's going to be more flat anyway because of Picasso.
All right.
And then we'll hit return. So we've already got the noise for the one above. And you can see, well, it has some similarities of what it's done.
It's a different image.
It's a different image. And it struggles because I've given it two kind of things, two subjects. So it's an angel descending from heaven wielding above a raging battle. So that's two different subjects. And so you can see where it's struggling to... It's got the angel and it's trying to do an angel with something, a warrior, a single warrior. So it's going to be interesting. So what is this doing here? This is weird. Now, Picasso's style is varied. So if I'd said Cubism, it would be different. So if you look at his earlier work before he really delved into this, is reminiscent of some of the style that he would do. So if we said Cubism,
okay, you want to try again with Cubism? Let's see it. That's kind of what I was looking forward to seeing. I wanted to see the Cubism version of. You're going to put Picasso and Cubism? Oh, Picasso Cubism. There you go.
And then we'll get rid of the cinematic part of it and go.
I'm excited to see where it goes.
I am too. This is going to be really interesting.
Although, those other Picasso ones, they look fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at his earlier work, younger work, he is a very accomplished artist, portraiture kind of artist. And so and once he had mastered that particular craft, that's when he delved into these different styles and different ways of doing art.
That's cool. Oh, now that's pretty sick. Look at that. That is so cool.
Yeah, so this is definitely more in that particular vein of things. And then our brother Nathan, he was like, "Oh, we're gonna do. Oops, let's do Imagine first. Let's get rid of the above a raging battle. It just seems to be struggling with that second thing. We're gonna say.
Well, but look at the Picasso Cubism one, the bottom left. There's definitely an angel, and there's definitely people on the ground battling.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and pop that prompt in. I want to see.
We'll see what it does. But yeah, this is definitely it definitely did better with that. But there are some paintings that Picasso did about the wars that he was familiar with, and so
You think that's drawing more from Picasso's instruction than from the whole angel and the raging battle bit?
I think it helped it understand that story better, and again, it goes into its knowledge and its database, its understanding, and so it knows. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of pictures of Picasso's work that it's seen iterations of that. So I think it has a better base knowledge of those things. Now, I don't know because I'm not the programmers of this thing, but
okay, so
that is not a stained glass window. Stained glass art.
Stained glass art. Yeah, I should have said window.
But look at this. This time it went with a male type figure instead of a female figure.
I wonder why stained glass art would make it presume a male as opposed to a female.
Huh. That's strange. And see, this is why this is great for concepting. It's not going to get you that finished work unless you really, really start tinkering with it and figuring those things out. So, like with my real estate projects, let's go over here for a quick second. So with this, I've said, given it a single subject. I've given it an architect. This is a very known architect, and she has a particular style. I want it shot at ground level in the early morning, so you can see the difference from the earlier thing where it was late afternoon. It's also natural lighting. I also want that architectural photography. Gave it the parameters, and then I want it to stick close. And so this architect style is more organic. Now, this might be a warehouse, but it has that organic feel rather than the boxy feel that this kind of thing. And so, even with her style,
I'm gonna jump in with another legal AI thought. So, we were looking at images of this architect's buildings, right? And so the question becomes: an architect owns the copyright to the building, but a photographer owns the copyright to a photo of a building, right? Right? And so if AI is learning your architectural style, whose copyrights are being violated, right? I mean, it's interesting to think about because you can't make a copy of a building, right? I mean, you can make a copy of a building. I think China actually has created entire cities from the U.S. and rebuilt them in China. Have you read about this? There's a really fascinating.
I have not. That's wild.
No, they were like, oh, we've got to ease our cities and stuff, and so they literally, I think they rebuilt like part of New York and just built it in China. We're like, here, you can move in. There are these interesting ghost cities that nobody's moved into. But
okay.
But no, that's totally beyond the point. My original point was artificial intelligence and copyright, and like you've got different mediums of art from not just pictures and paintings and things like that, but you've also got sculptures, and you've got buildings, and so we're going to see this debate play out a couple of different ways in a couple of different formats in terms of what is protected or not. So it's just a fascinating topic overall, and I'm happy to have a lawyer eye on it, as in addition to just my own personal interest and technical interests. So show us this.
Okay, so this was a personal project. I'm familiar with. I mean, we both speak Spanish, and so I served my mission in Honduras, and so I love the Honduras country and areas around Honduras, and so I was
the bananas.
The bananas. Are the best.
Very particular about your Honduran bananas.
Yes, and unfortunately, there's not a lot coming from Honduras right now, and so I'm very sad.
That's too bad.
But in this particular case, I wanted to create a luxury resort kind of offering marketing book. And I was like, how am I going to go about doing that? And so I created prompts to help me create that. And so here is a resort with the jungle and Mayan aesthetic bordering the beach and nestled in the jungle on the island of Roatan, which is an island just off the north coast of Honduras. I want warm natural lighting, tight depth of field, architectural photography, photorealistic, and then some Canon my camera. And it created these amazing vistas, which
that's awesome.
I thought were fantastic. I mean, it looks like a nice resort for sure. And I went through a variety of different prompts, gathering images that I could create a book out of it and produce some really interesting features. So I've got the beach, this is what you're going to expect during the day, what you can enjoy. Here's a pool that's available at one of the rooms, another infinity pool. And then I delved into some stylistic things. So we'll go into some of those. And restaurant, I was trying to get a nice restaurant for the hotel or resort.
So I'll keep going.
One of the things that I loved about this project was like the photorealistic nature of things like, oh, here's the scuba diving trip.
Oh, it's amazing. And that's just so cool.
This is completely made up. And then things like
and you had ChatGPT generate the text for your manual as well, right? So completely AI generated kind of offering document. Yeah, it's awesome.
Right. And so you can see the variety of things that Midjourney or any of these AI art generating platforms can provide to you. So in this particular thing, I said I want the site plan for this luxury resort, and I want it to be this style. I want it to be architect hand drawn watercolor style, and obviously, it really bought into that and pulled that from this.
Yeah, I love it. I love the art style.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things about this particular
one
project.
of the coolest things that it did is that it kind of matched your photo. It kind of matched this architectural drawing with one of the photos you did. Like one of the photos you ultimately got looks like it was built after this plan, which is nuts.
Yeah, which is really fascinating. And I'm wondering, and I have no idea about this, and I probably should do some research about it, but I'm wondering, as you prompt things, is it gathering data on that particular thing and then infusing that into future material as it's creating it for you. And that's why I have some of these channels here, because sometimes it seems like that is the case, that it's learning from those previous ones and then infusing that learning from them into these new ones.
I know people are theorizing that online, but I don't know that I've read anything confirming from either of these companies. But we should do some research and figure that out.
Yeah.
So it was after you showed me
awesome
these.
This is.
that would be a pretty cool place to be, actually.
Oh, I'd love to.
I would love that.
Hang out here. And
when you get it built in Honduras,
guest accommodations.
Let me know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, look at the guest accommodations. I mean, it did a fantastic job with these interiors, and that's where that specificity comes. I'm sure that if I tighten it up a little bit more, and of course you can see that this is not even the current version. This I did when it was version 5.1 rather than 5.2, and I wonder what I could pull off with these
with
prompts.
version 5.2.
Yeah.
I want to go off on a quick tangent, because when you showed me these, I decided that I would make I wanted to try to make, fantasy inspired ones and Dungeons and Dragons. And so my adventurers were showing up to like an elf palace, and I was like, what would a really fancy kind of magically done hotel castle kind of be like? And it's that architectural photography instruction helps it draw into some of these really nice settings. And so it was a really incredible blend of fantasy and reality, creating these. So here, I'm going to show you some of these close-ups, like a conference room.
See, that is just so cool.
and I really like this one as well.
Gandalf and Elrond sitting around that particular conference table.
Yeah, this is where the Fellowship should have met, right?
Exactly.
I mean, but look at that. Look at the reflection on the floor. And what's amazing is, like, you could have a hotel kind of built like this. Like, from a concept perspective, this is incredible. And that's kind of what you were saying, is that for art concepts, Midjourney just, it's really amazing. But I love that you have been able to get it to create to such a degree, to such a level of specificity, that you can get to the point that you can use it for work. Like, people are like, oh, it's going to do so much stuff for us in the future, but they're not realizing that, like, a lot of these tools are powerful enough to help you right now, and not just to create images for fun for your Dungeons and Dragons games, but for your actual day job. And I know that people are using that for ChatGPT, but I don't think we're using it to the full extent. But people aren't doing that a whole lot with Midjourney, and I think you already can, which I think is really great.
It's funny you talk about that, because this week I found I was working on a Christmas holiday invite for a client, and I had drawn a character for this for the business previously, and they wanted it with a Santa outfit and some other things, and so I drew that original piece of art, and then I was looking for backgrounds for the invite itself, and I found a bunch of generative AI backgrounds with snowflakes, the typical holiday thing where you've got the red gradient background and snowflakes descending, and so it was entertaining to see that already these things are being infused into the stock art and other things. And so, like, I don't typically go looking for stock art a lot these days. I'll just go to Midjourney and say I've got here, I'll go to my social post channel. You can pull that up.
I'll share it. Yep.
So, like, things like this. This is a mixed use development of retail, homes, and office. Let me see if I can find some of the. So, a real estate brochure, property marketing pieces, computer, and then some interesting things. I was like, marketing paraphernalia, but it didn't.
I've seen hero images like that. No, I love how you've been using it. When I check out your LinkedIn profile page, I'm always like, man, Warren is using Midjourney again.
Okay, so this right here, look at that. A late 30s female real estate broker touring a high-end commercial office space with a group of 2 investors, smiles on faces while they are talking about the space portrait photography, photorealistic, shot with a DSLR. See, I didn't even go with all the specificity. I just said DSLR at a distance of about 30 feet.
Boom.
And
fantastic,
boom.
usable image.
Yeah, this is, I mean, she looks realistic. Her hands aren't terrible. She, looks like she fits that kind of business professional role. Now I don't have, the stock photography isn't as necessary. The same with this, so.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like in the past when I've looked and hunted down stock photography, I'll often find cheesy stuff. But if I can create a good enough prompt in Midjourney, I can find something a lot less cheesy and more usable more quickly.
Well, I just realized something just now on a project that I was working on. So, and creatives, those that are looking for stock photography, quite often will get this. We see the same people over and over again. And
yeah, there's that. Yep.
And so it gets a little wonky. So a client of mine was like, "Oh, we've already used this individual and this, and this," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but this is the photos you provided for this particular project. What do you want me to do?" So I asked them to provide some preferences, but maybe I could go in and use some of these for those.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's an advantage to Midjourney is never have an identical person stock photo again. So
well, and going back to the whole, you see the same people. I mean, there's this one lady.
There's a whole meme about her life with a boyfriend.
Oh yeah, that one's fantastic. I love that story where they've just taken all this stock photography and made a story, this kind of soap operatic story about this individual.
Right.
But,
yeah.
Like other design professionals and we joke about certain ladies having 12 different husbands and they.
Because they appear so frequently in stock photography.
Eight different families, and you're just like, holy cow, these people are all over the place. But it's the same model being used or put into different scenarios. So, but
cool.
Yeah, this AI art generating platform stuff is really fantastic, and Midjourney is kind of my go-to. My favorite is the one I've played with the most. I do use Leonardo occasionally. Adobe. It has their own Firefly, and they've infused a lot of that AI tool into Photoshop and Illustrator. And so these things are doing some phenomenal work. I've used a lot of the tools to really enhance and speed up my efforts with design. So
very cool. Well, thanks for showing Midjourney to us. I mean, it's fun to be able to get together and talk about these amazing tools. And so just a quick shout out. We're going to keep talking about this every week for those of you who are following along. We're going to be sharing with you our explorations of ChatGPT, of Midjourney, and other AI platforms. And then also we are launching a website. It's not fully put together. We're kind of building it as we fly it, which is fun in its own right. But you can visit us now at Tingenuity.ai, and we've already got some materials there that you can check out. But we are so excited to be on this artificial intelligence journey together. So thanks, Warren, for sharing stuff with us.
Well, thank you. And we look forward to hanging out with all of you in our audience and sharing what we've learned and know about these platforms.
Cool. Thanks.